The courtroom falls into an eerie silence as the gavel strikes the wooden block with a force that echoes through the tense air. The crowd's murmurs die down, replaced by the weight of an announcement, none expected. "Guilty," the judge declares. The word hangs heavy in the air, shattering the brittle calm like glass. No one speaks, no one moves. The accused stands frozen, their face a mask of disbelief. They had come to court with hope, but now it all crumbles. The prosecutor, standing tall, watches as the reality of the verdict settles in. In the gallery, there's a sense of collective breath held, a single moment stretched into eternity. But the worst is yet to come. The real truth has yet to be revealed, and it promises to bring everything crashing down. The eyes of everyone are on the accused, but beneath it all, the first tremors of a secret no one can contain start to surface. The accused finally takes a deep breath, as if trying to ground themselves. The room is still, save for the sound of their pulse racing in their ears. They want to speak, to refute, to declare their innocence, but the words fail them. Their lawyer, who had promised victory, now stands silent beside them, a defeated figure in the face of the crushing verdict. The judge motions for the bailiff to escort them, but the accused doesn't move. It feels like time itself has frozen. Only their thoughts are running wild, memories of the case, their mistakes, and the glaring truth they had tried to ignore. Outside the courtroom the world is waiting, ready to devour whatever happens next. But in this moment, they're paralyzed, caught between the past and an uncertain future. The gavel has fallen, but the real battle is just beginning. The judge's eyes linger on the accused. There's no satisfaction in their gaze, no triumph, only a flicker of regret, perhaps even sympathy. But that emotion is quickly masked by the cold professionalism of their role. They are the law, and they must uphold it, no matter the personal cost. The room feels colder as the gavel rests ominously on the desk before them. Every word they've spoken today weighs heavier than it should, and yet they know this is just the beginning. The next phase will be even more grueling. The judge rises, signaling the end of the session, but the storm of emotions in the room continues to swirl. What follows will determine the fate of all involved, and the judge cannot help but feel a sense of dread about what might come to light next. The prosecutor stands tall, feeling the rush of victory surge through them. It's a moment they've waited for, their hard work, their strategy, and their relentless pursuit of justice coming to fruition. But beneath the surface, a gnawing unease starts to grow. There is something about this case that feels off, like they've won a battle but not the war. The accused is guilty, no question, but there's an unsettling silence in the air. The prosecutor casts a quick glance at the defense, noting the dejection written across their face. It's a victory, yes, but at what cost? As the courtroom empties, the prosecutor's mind begins to churn with thoughts of the next move. The final chapter is yet to be written, and they are not certain they will like how it unfolds. As the courtroom empties, the silence that follows is deafening. Footsteps echo in the vast cold hallways. Outside, the media waits, cameras flashing, eager to capture the aftermath of the verdict. Mark feels the weight of it all pressing down on their shoulders. The case, the trial, the verdict, it's only just begun to unfold. They know that what comes next will be far more dangerous. Friends become enemies, and enemies grow stronger. There are whispers, rumors, and the faintest hint of something darker at play. They cannot yet put the pieces together, but the pieces are moving on their own. And one by one, they will fall into place. The halls of the courthouse are a maze of shadows and whispers. The verdict has been delivered, but the consequences are only just beginning to take shape. Mark, exhausted and broken from the trial, walks the halls with a sinking feeling in their gut. They can hear snippets of conversations, too hushed to catch everything, but enough to confirm their suspicions. The defense lawyer is speaking with a reporter, the prosecutor is laughing with colleagues, but it all feels wrong. As if the world has shifted into something darker. The hero knows they've been played, but who is the puppet master pulling the strings? They feel the weight of the unanswered questions pressing harder with every step. It is not just the verdict that holds them captive now, but the unknown forces that are circling closer with every passing moment. The defense lawyer's office is a small, cramped space, a reflection of their current state. Papers are scattered everywhere, half-written arguments left incomplete, a mirror of their fractured confidence. They sit at their desk, hands gripping the edge, trying to avoid eye contact with Mark. It was supposed to be a sure thing, the case was stacked in their favor, yet here they are, defeated. "We should have seen it," the lawyer mutters, voice barely above a whisper. "They were always one step ahead of us." The room grows colder, the air thick with frustration. Mark glares at their lawyer, frustration bubbling to the surface. How could they let this happen? How could the entire defense have failed so spectacularly? A knock on the door interrupts the heavy silence of the lawyer's office. The door creaks open to reveal a figure, cloaked in darkness, with their face partially hidden by a wide-brimmed hat. No words are spoken, but the message is clear. They are here to offer something. A truth too dangerous to ignore. "We know who's behind this," the figure says, their voice low, steady. "And we know what comes next." The lawyer, though hesitant, knows they have no choice but to listen. They lean forward, their interest piqued despite their unease. The figure's words are carefully measured, but there's no denying the gravity in them. Mark watches in silence from the doorway, unsure whether this is an ally or yet another threat in the tangled web of lies and deceit. In a secluded backroom of a quiet diner, Mark meets with a former insider, a person who once had ties to the other side, but has since fallen out of favor. The room is small, lit by flickering neon signs from outside, casting an eerie glow through the windows. Over the clinking of coffee cups, the insider speaks in hushed tones, confirming Mark's worst fears. They had it planned from the beginning. Every move, every decision, it was all part of their game. The words hit like a slap to the face, but Mark doesn't flinch. "Who?" they ask, their voice trembling with urgency. The insider pauses before answering, "Someone you trust." The room falls silent, the weight of that revelation hanging in the air like a cloud of poison. Back in the courthouse parking lot, Mark walks to their car, still digesting the conversation. The air is thick with tension as they open the door, ready to leave when a voice stops them. "You're in over your head," a cold voice warns from the shadows. Mark whips around, eyes wide with fear, but no one is there. The voice is gone as quickly as it came, but the chill in the air lingers. A sense of unease gnaws at them. Was it a warning, or just a shadow of paranoia? As the car engine rumbles to life, they look over their shoulder, but the parking lot is empty. Still, the words echo in their mind, haunting them. "You're in over your head." The tension is palpable as Mark steps into the evidence room, a feeling of dread clawing at their chest. The lights hum above, casting an eerie glow on the shelves filled with boxes and files. Something feels off. Their instincts scream that something is wrong. As they approach the case file, the seal on the envelope is broken, and the evidence inside has been tampered with. Key documents missing, photographs out of place. A chill runs down their spine. "No," they whisper, the realization dawning on them. Someone is trying to cover their tracks. But who? And why? They flip through the rest of the files, their hands shaking, but the damage is done. Their mind races. Someone close to them is involved. The fight for justice has just become a far more dangerous game. In a quiet alley, Mark makes a call they never thought they would have to make. The phone rings, and with each second, their anxiety builds. Finally, the line connects. "We need to talk," Mark says, their voice low, filled with urgency. On the other end, there's a hesitation. "What happened?" The response is barely audible, but the fear in the voice is unmistakable. "You have to stop. This has gone too far," they warn. "You're not the only one at risk anymore." Mark's pulse quickens, and their grip tightens on the phone. "Tell me everything," they demand. But the line cuts off before the truth can spill. Another dead end. Another voice lost to the shadows. But Mark knows, deep down, that there's no turning back now. The hidden agenda behind the case becomes clearer when Mark is forced to confront an old friend, turned foe. In a grim conference room, the air thick with tension, Mark faces their former ally across the table. "You've been playing both sides," Mark accuses, their voice shaking with a mixture of anger and betrayal. The friend, once a trusted partner, remains calm, almost indifferent. "I was always on my side," they reply, their words cutting with icy detachment. "You were just a pawn in a bigger game." Mark's world begins to fracture as the full scope of the conspiracy is revealed. All along, they were never meant to win. They were just part of a plan, far bigger and darker than they had ever imagined. Mark receives a final chilling warning in the form of an anonymous letter slipped under their door. The words are simple but laced with malice. "Stop digging, you won't like what you find." The letter is accompanied by a single photograph, an image of Mark's family, taken without their knowledge, as if they were being watched. The blood drains from their face as they realize how deep the danger has become. This isn't just about the case anymore. This is personal. The walls feel like they are closing in on them, and they know they are running out of time. Every step they take draws them closer to an unknown enemy, but now, the stakes are higher than ever. The game has changed, and it's no longer just their freedom at risk, it's their life. As Mark leaves their office, the weight of the events pressing down on them, they can't shake the feeling that they're being watched. Turning a corner, they spot a shadowy figure in the distance, lurking just outside the building. Mark's heart races, their instincts screaming that this is no coincidence. They quicken their pace, but the figure follows. The tension builds with each step until finally, the figure stops. "You're getting too close," a voice calls from the darkness. "Turn back now before it's too late." Mark doesn't answer, their jaw clenched in defiance. They won't back down. But the sense of danger is undeniable. Whoever is behind this will stop at nothing to ensure the truth stays buried. The pieces finally begin to fall into place as Mark uncovers the hidden truth. Late at night, in a dimly lit library, they sit surrounded by old files, poring over evidence they'd missed before. As they cross-reference documents and photographs, one detail stands out: a familiar name in a completely unexpected context. The realization hits hard. The person they've trusted the most, the one they believe to be their ally, has been working against them the entire time. The betrayal stings worse than they expected. It's not just a case anymore, it's a war. Mark slams the folder shut in anger, the weight of their discovery crashing down. They have been walking into a trap, manipulated from the very beginning, and the truth is far more twisted than they could have imagined. Now there is no turning back. The confrontation happens in a quiet office building late at night, the air thick with tension. Mark faces their betrayer, who now stands unflinching across the room. The truth is out, and the lie is finally exposed. "You were behind it all, weren't you?" Mark demands, their voice trembling with a mixture of rage and hurt. The betrayer doesn't flinch, their face expressionless, as they respond coldly. "I did what I had to do. You were too weak to understand." Mark takes a step forward, their heart racing, but they know this is not just about revenge. It's about survival. They need to find out why, and fast. The stakes have never been higher, and the walls are closing in. The betrayer's words cut deep, revealing a hidden agenda that had been concealed from the very start. "It wasn't just about you," they say, leaning forward with a twisted smile. "You were always a pawn in a game that's much bigger than you could ever imagine." Mark feels the floor beneath them shift, the world spinning. What seemed like a personal vendetta is now part of a larger conspiracy, one that could shake the foundation of everything they thought they knew. "Who else is involved?" Mark asks, their voice now steely with determination. The betrayer remains silent, the room growing colder with each passing second. But it's clear, this game is far from over, and the worst is yet to come. As the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, Mark begins to understand the scope of the deception. The people they thought they could trust, the prosecutor, their own allies, have all been part of a larger scheme. The realization is sickening. "It's not just about the trial," Mark mutters to themselves, their voice barely audible. "This goes beyond all of us." In a moment of clarity, they realize that the forces at play are far-reaching, and exposing the truth will require more than just legal battles. It will take everything they have. They can no longer trust anyone. The fight is now against a network of corruption, and Mark is alone in a war they never signed up for. The weight of everything becomes too much to bear. As Mark steps outside, their breath visible in the cold night air, they feel the crushing weight of their decisions. They've lost so much, and the world they once knew is now a blur of lies and betrayal. The city around them is silent, as if holding its breath. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," they whisper, their voice hoarse with exhaustion. The realization hits, there's no way out. The forces behind this trial have their claws in everything. Every institution, every ally. All they have now is themselves, and even that feels like it's slipping through their fingers. But there's no giving up. Not now. Not when the truth is within their grasp. The courtroom is packed to the brim, the air thick with anticipation as the final moments of the trial approach. Mark stands at the defendant's table, eyes locked on the prosecutor. Their opponent is ruthless, every word a calculated strike. The gavel slams down as the judge calls for order, but the tension is palpable. "You've had your chance," the prosecutor sneers, "and now you'll face the consequences." But Mark knows something they don't, a final piece of evidence, one that could turn the tide in an instant. They glance toward their lawyer, who gives them a barely perceptible nod. The last argument is about to be made. Mark stands tall, their voice unwavering. "I'm not done yet," they declare, their words ringing out through the room. This fight is far from over. With a deep breath, Mark presents the final piece of evidence, an encrypted file containing undeniable proof of the corruption running through the case. As the documents are displayed for all to see, the room goes silent. The prosecutor's confident demeanor falters for the first time, and the air becomes thick with disbelief. "This is it," Mark says, their voice firm, unwavering. "You've been manipulating the truth, but no more." The judge looks over the evidence with scrutiny, and the jury shifts in their seats. The truth has finally surfaced, and it threatens to unravel everything. For a moment, it feels like victory is within their reach. But as the weight of the evidence settles in, the real battle is just beginning. The backlash comes swiftly. As soon as the court session ends, whispers begin to spread through the halls. The prosecutor's allies are furious, scrambling to discredit the new evidence, while Mark is thrust into the media spotlight. Outside, reporters hound them with questions, the pressure mounting. "Do you think this changes everything?" one reporter asks. Mark pauses, their expression guarded. "It's just the beginning," they reply, their voice steady despite the storm brewing around them. As the questions pile up, Mark realizes that winning this case is not the end. It's only the beginning of a much larger battle. The forces aligned against them are not going down without a fight, and they must now prepare for whatever comes next. Mark's phone rings in the middle of the night. It's a number they know all too well. "You've made a big mistake," the voice on the other end warns. It's their former ally now turned adversary, someone they thought they could trust. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," they add, their tone dripping with venom. "Everything you've done will be undone. It's too late to turn back now." Mark feels a wave of dread wash over them. The enemy has grown too powerful, and even their closest friends have been turned against them. But there is no time for doubt now. They hang up the phone, steeling themselves for the war that has just begun. If they want to survive, they will have to fight against not just the system, but everyone they once thought they could trust. The decision comes in the dead of night. Mark stands alone in their office, the weight of everything they've fought for heavy on their shoulders. The trial is over, but the real fight is far from won. The enemy is still out there, their influence reaching further than Mark could ever have imagined. But there is no turning back. They know the truth, and that is the only weapon they have left. "This isn't over," Mark murmurs to themselves, their eyes set with unwavering resolve. Outside, the city lights flicker in the distance, the night stretching endlessly ahead. The journey has only just begun, and they are ready for whatever comes next. The city is quiet, too quiet. Mark walks the empty streets, their footsteps echoing against the cold pavement. Their mind races, replaying the events that have led them here. The truth is now undeniable, but the forces they're up against are more powerful than they could have ever imagined. It's a game of survival now, and they're playing with everything on the line. The weight of the choices they've made is overwhelming, but there's no turning back. The endgame is approaching, and the only question left is whether they will emerge victorious or be consumed by the storm. The final battle is imminent, and they are standing on the precipice, waiting for the first move. They know their every step will be watched. But tonight, they walk with purpose. The phone rings. The voice on the other end is cold, threatening. "You think you've won," the voice sneers. "This is just the beginning. You've made an enemy of the wrong people." Mark listens in silence, their grip tightening on the phone. It's clear now, the enemy is preparing for their final move. The game has shifted. What was once a courtroom battle is now a fight for survival. "I'll stop you," Mark says, their voice steady despite the rising tension in their chest. The line goes dead. Mark stands there for a moment, the weight of the threat hanging heavy in the air. It's time to end this. But they know it won't be easy. The final confrontation has begun. Desperation forces, unlikely alliances. Mark meets with a former adversary, someone who once stood against them but now offers a tentative truce. In a dimly lit, secluded cafe, they exchange tense words. "We can't win this alone," the ally says, their voice low. "I've got information that could help, but I'm not doing this for free." Mark's mind races as they weigh their options. They know they have no choice but to accept the offer, no matter how dangerous the consequences may be. "You've got one shot," Mark says, locking eyes with their ally. The decision is made. Together, they may stand a chance, but the risks are enormous. In a game of betrayal and corruption, trusting someone once an enemy feels like a gamble. But in this moment, it's their only hope. The next day, Mark walks into the courthouse for the final hearing, knowing it could be their last. The halls are eerily quiet as they make their way to the courtroom. Their heart pounds in their chest, a mixture of fear and determination. Every corner, every person in the building seems to hold a potential threat. They've gathered everything they can, every scrap of evidence, every witness, and now they stand alone against the enemy. The prosecutor's side is filled with tension as well. There's no telling what tricks will be pulled, but Mark is prepared. The stakes are at their highest now, and this final battle will determine everything. As they stand before the judge, the silence in the room feels suffocating. This is it, the point of no return. The courtroom is packed, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. The judge calls for silence as the final arguments are presented. Mark stands tall, their voice steady as they lay out the final evidence. Every word is carefully chosen, every fact laid bare. The prosecutor counters with venom, but there's a shift in the room, a palpable sense that the tide has turned. The jury watches intently, their eyes locked on Mark as the decision looms closer. The judge's gavel comes down with a resounding thud, and for a moment, the room holds its breath. "Guilty," the verdict rings out, echoing through the courtroom. Mark's heart pounds in their chest, relief and disbelief flooding over them. But as the tension slowly dissolves, they know this is just the beginning of a much larger story. A story of redemption, but also one of deep scars. Their fight has been won, but the war is far from over. The courtroom has emptied, but the weight of the trial's outcome still hangs in the air. Outside, Mark stands on the steps, gazing at the city, the bright lights feeling distant. Justice has been served, but the cost is far higher than they anticipated. There are no cheers, no celebration, only silence. The media has flooded the streets, but no words can truly capture the complexity of what has just transpired. Mark feels the shift inside them, the years of fighting for what's right now replaced with a deep weariness. The victory is hollow. The enemies they've uncovered are still out there, and the scars they've sustained are visible and painful. Their journey isn't over, but in this moment, they can only feel the emptiness. The world may have seen their success, but inside Mark knows the price of truth is a heavy burden to bear. Back in their office, Mark sits alone, the papers from the trial scattered across the desk. It's quiet now, too quiet. Their fingers run over the cold surface of the desk, each document a reminder of everything they've lost. But with each passing moment, they begin to realize that this was never just about the case. It was about everything they've sacrificed. The relationships that have been destroyed, the trust that has been broken, and the lies they've uncovered. There are moments when they wonder if it was all worth it. A knock on the door interrupts their thoughts, and a familiar voice calls from the other side. "Are you all right?" Mark stands looking out the window, their face hardened but with a faint trace of gratitude for those who have stood by them. The road ahead is uncertain, but they know one thing for sure: they aren't alone. Mark walks through the front door of a new office, the sound of the door clicking behind them, a symbol of a fresh start. Their first day at a new job in a new city, surrounded by new faces. The weight of the past still lingers, but with each step, they feel a flicker of hope. It's a new chapter, one where they can take everything they've learned and use it for something better. The room is brighter, more hopeful. Mark takes a deep breath and sits at their new desk, staring at the blank space before them. They've walked through darkness, but now they have a chance to build something lasting. They open the first folder on their desk, prepared to face whatever challenges lie ahead. The past may have shaped them, but it will not define them. The final meeting with their former ally takes place in a small cafe, where the two share a quiet conversation. "We've come a long way," the ally says, sipping their coffee. Mark nods but doesn't speak. There's a lingering silence, one filled with the weight of everything they've been through. "Do you ever regret it?" the ally asks. Mark hesitates, then answers quietly. "Regret isn't the right word. It's just a different life now." The ally smiles, a bittersweet expression crossing their face. "You'll find your way." As the meeting ends, Mark walks away, their thoughts heavy, but their steps steady. The end of the journey is not the same as the resolution. It's a continuation, a new phase. They leave the cafe with a sense of peace, but the story isn't over. It will never be. As Mark walks through the streets, they pause at the edge of a park. The noise of the world continues, but there's a quiet peace in this moment. A silence that speaks louder than any verdict. Mark looks up at the sky, a deep breath filling their lungs. They've survived, and the truth has been revealed, but the journey is not over. A single thought echoes in their mind. What now? The world is vast, and they are only one person, but they know they've done what they could. The final chapter is closed, but it will never be forgotten. The truth always finds its way, they whisper to themselves, the words lingering in the air. The gavel may have fallen, but the reverberations will echo for a lifetime.